Hi, friends. This is Alyssa at Stories and Spoilers, the podcast. I am your host, and this is a Bookish Confessions episode. So, confessions from people on Instagram, as well as my own personal bookish opinions, will be shared in this episode. This won't be a spoiler episode or anything. We're just going to kind of dive into people's opinions about certain books, tropes, icks, things they love, etc. I also have a mini book haul. I have three packages that I got that are book related. So, I'm holding them up. I opened the top, but I don't actually know what books are inside of them. I won a giveaway, and I am expecting a book very soon from an author who I'm a really big fan of. So I've been very, very lucky. I hope you're all doing well. Because this is an episode where it's kind of short and to the point, and it's a bonus episode, I hope that you're able to grab a cozy drink and just kind of chill out and listen. You can put this on in the background while you do things, or you can just listen to this on your way to work or maybe ending the day. But I'm really grateful that you're here, and I'm excited to just share these bookish opinions with you from people on Bookstagram and some of my own personal opinions on things that I've been kind of thinking about. Also, new hair. For listeners who aren't looking at visuals, I have these like blondish braids. My friend Kavashti did them, and they are so comfortable and so cute. So you will see these in upcoming episodes. Okay, so let's hop right into it. So I posted on social media on my Bookstagram, which is Stories and Spoilers podcast on Instagram. Please check me out. I'll link my page below. You can see updates about upcoming episodes, authors, things like that. So I asked listeners a question, and people will put in the comments, their bookish confession. So one book blog said, Bookworm Elig said, "Oh, I have too many. I judge books based on the cover. That is a big one. I also kind of look at covers sometimes, and I wonder, like, is this going to be a good book? If the cover is not great, sometimes I read the synopsis or I read a little bit of the blurb, and then I decide if I want to read it. I also give books like the first 20 pages, and if they can't suck me in the first 20 pages, then I DNF it or I just come back to it later if it was like really a vibe I was going for. Getting Fade Pod, hey guys, said, I confess I am very cover conscious. Often I sit in public reading and try my hardest to make the cover face a wall or a window or something. I don't even know why. It's not even like the books are very smutty. I just don't want anyone to know what I'm reading. Mikey. Thank you so much, Getting Fade Pod. They're a wonderful podcast. You should definitely check them out. Check them out. They do like episodes about like Court of Thorns and Roses and other really cool like high fantasy books. So they're really amazing. Thanks for commenting, guys. Lily's Library said, ooh, they said, "Oh my God, T, so excited for this. A bookish confession of mine is I've never read The Hunger Games." I asked them why. I was just curious. And they said, no particular reason. It just hasn't called my name like the other books have. I grew up on that series, so I was mind blown, but that's really cool. Okay. Reading with Alex said, I have a tendency to dog ear pages that I like. I'm also guilty of this. Before I got book tabs or like sticky notes, sometimes I would just kind of curl the page of the book. You know what I mean? Like you just want to come back to it. I did this a lot in high school, so I hear you, Alex. Book Speeches and Brews said, I really dislike any pregnancy tropes. I asked about this, and they said, I just don't enjoy it. Maybe because I'm not a fan of most kids, or because I'm childless by choice. That's totally cool. I just don't vibe with it, especially accidental pregnancy. Heard? Good Quiet Kitty said, I really enjoy books with more middle-aged characters because I'm over how young people behave. All right, heard. I'm kind of like that with books with like high school main characters. I'm okay with they're in high school for the first few chapters, like in a past tense, like it's like a flashback. But it's hard for me to read books with characters who are like 15, 16, and I'm sitting here and I'm like mid 20s. I don't know. It's just difficult sometimes. Okay. Amateur Bookworm said, I'm a recovering dog earer, but I've been good about using bookmarks for a while now. Okay. I'm gonna start like reading through these a little bit. I am Mercy Hernandez said, I always recommend Midnight Library because I found it so deep and magical. Maya Kate Wright said, I love breaking the spines of books. It's one of my favorite parts of reading. One of my bookish confessions is that I really love books that have lots of longing and yearning, and I feel like that's really hard to find sometimes. I feel like Insta love is getting really popular. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just sometimes I kind of miss books where like you could hear from one character's point of view how much they were in love with someone else, and like you can hear their passion and like why they were falling in love with the other character and they don't get with them until like mid book. Not really a slow burn because like I want it to be clear they have feelings for them. I'm not a huge fan of miscommunication, but I don't know. I feel like yearning, it's just been hard for me to find books with lots of yearning. So if anybody has any recommendations, put them in the comments below because I could always use a book with some yearning. The romance agent, Regent, which is the person who sent me some of these books I want to give away with them. So thank you so much for these books. They commented, my least favorite trope is bullying. I just cannot get over when someone bullies another character for half the book and then all of a sudden they fall in love. That's a big nope for me. Now, I love enemies to lovers. My partner actually is a huge fan of enemies to lovers. I have a lot of friends who love that trope, but I can't really do bully romances either. I'm not going to shame anyone who does. It's just not my favorite genre either. So I totally hear you. Bookish Raquel said, I think all romance books could be 100 pages less. Ooh, okay. That's kind of how I feel about like, I'm sorry if you hear a dog barking in the background. My family has dogs. Um, but I kind of feel that way about sci-fi sometimes. Like, I don't need my science fiction books to be 900 pages. I'm sorry. Some books out there are just so long for no reason, and I would prefer if they were just a little bit shorter. Um, Steffi Library says, I always think about Throne of Glass or the ACOTAR series. It's one of my top favorite series. Could be overrated, but I don't care. I'm obsessed. That's how I feel about the Fallen Men series. There are just some books that you'll hold on to forever, and there are some series that people say, like, oh, it's overhyped, it's overhyped. But sometimes books deserve the hype, okay? Sometimes it deserves the hype. Read the Book First podcast said, big books scare me, 400 pages plus. Yet I read 2,300 pages books a week. The math doesn't add up. I will say this, hear me out, hear me out. When I read books on my Kindle, I feel like I fly through them. And obviously, I love a good physical copy. But like if the book is taking a very long, like I feel like the pacing isn't great. Sometimes I'll be reading a physical book and I'm like, damn, this is going on forever. But I'll read it on my Kindle and I'll finish it in a day. I don't know. Sometimes like super big books, I think the appearance of a big book can be overwhelming, especially if it's a lot of like world building or a lot of like multiple characters are like happening all at once. I could totally see how that would be overwhelming. But I feel like low key, like with a Kindle or an audiobook, I have found I fly through books sometimes. It just depends on the author. So I totally hear you. And funny enough, Read the Book First podcast, we're doing an episode about Dinner for Vampires with my friend Sam soon. So we're doing a buddy read about a woman who was kind of struggling with being in a cult, a religious cult. That's going to be a buddy read coming out very soon, hopefully next month. So thank you so much for commenting on this podcast episode because, yeah, we're going to be doing an episode together very soon. We also did an episode on their podcast about Night Bitch. So Read the Book First podcast does like books and films. So they'll watch the movie first and then they'll talk about the book or in the movie and then compare and contrast. So she's super, super cool. Janessa, if you're listening to this, you're amazing. Okay. Kaden Reed said, size differential is my least favorite trope. As an almost 6 foot tall lady, it annoys me more than anything in books. Okay, all right. So you know what? I will say this. I love when in a book someone's really, really tall or curvy, or maybe they have a physical characteristic that really differentiates them from like other people. I feel like representation matters. Having main characters who are super tall, super short, different sizes, different races, in fantasy, maybe whose magic represents something in real life. I don't know. Like I'm here for a little mix up. I feel like some characters they all sound the same. And I like when a character has their own distinct voice. I like that. Sammy Bookstagram says, A book I recommend is For the Show by Katie Van Burt. Okay, we love a recommendation. Kiara Bookfix says, cheating and love triangle are my least favorite tropes. I do like miscommunication and drama sometimes. All right, I hear you. Carrie Land Jean says, I became so aggravated with the miscommunication trope. I also have a thing about happily ever afters. They don't always need to end in tragedy, but there are some books where the happily ever after can feel unrealistic, you know? I can understand that. Okay. There are some fluffy romances where I know it's gonna end in like a super sweet way and like be tied with a bow. And sometimes I'm in the mood for that. Someone who does that really well is Liz Tom Ford and Evie Mitchell. Their happy endings, I feel like, end in such a warm and comforting way. It's like a comfort read, with spice. But there are some books where like if it's a fantasy or like a suspense or like a romance with suspense elements, I'm okay with it ending in more like of an ambiguous way or the ending not being so like everything worked out. Like some things did, some things didn't. I'm okay with that. Book Dragon Aaron said, I love Aaron. They said, my least favorite trope is insta love. Okay, someone else followed up on that. Mel G. Reed said, insta love is my least favorite book trope. I need the build up. I love a slow burn. Okay. Jen's Book Nook Club said, I honestly don't like real people on book covers. It's a hard pass for me. Yeah, I sometimes like it depends on the cover. It depends on the cover. Like Jackal has a real person's face on it. It's one of my favorite books of all time, Jackal by Erin Ede Adams. Sci-fi suspense vibes. Um, but the cover was done so artistically, I didn't mind that it had a real face on it. But when it comes to romance, I kind of prefer when there's like a flower or like a motorcycle. There's an item on the cover that relates to the story, but it's not someone's face. Sometimes when they have like actors' faces or like models' faces on the book, I feel like sometimes it reading it out in public can be awkward. But then you also have the element where like, what if the description of the person in the book is not what matches your mind? I would prefer just like a discreet cover, you know? Um, Even if it's spicy, I don't give a damn. I vibe with a discreet cover. Tartan Teapot and Books Croft said, my bookish confession is I hated Verity by Colleen Hoover. Last episode, you guys are gonna see I was not a fan of a certain book by Colleen Hoover. I actually enjoyed the suspense in Verity. The ending, if you want me to do a full book talk about Verity, I would reread it. I'm not buying it, but I'll read it through the library. Support your libraries. I'll reread Verity. It's been a few years. I do remember how it ended. So I would be down to do a book talk about it because I enjoy the way she writes suspense. I'm not a huge fan about how she writes romance. I read a lot of her books in high school. And at the time, I thought they were super amazing. Not bashing her by any means, but I do remember the endings of her books sometimes falling flat. Like the case of like a Stephen King, you know, whenever he would like write interesting books and then the end would always fall flat. I had something like that happening a lot with Colleen Hoover. I'm like, what's going on with the endings, girl? So, but yeah, Verity, I would do a reread of that. Let me know if you want me to do an episode about that because I don't mind. It's been a few years. I don't mind rereading it. Read with Mia said, I sometimes peek at the last page. Obviously, my podcast is called Stories and Spoilers, the podcast. I don't mind, you know, if I have a vibe of how the book's gonna end, I don't mind getting a little like, oh, girl, look out for this. I'm okay with that. Do I peek at the last page? No. I actually don't do that very often. Okay. Bookish Sisters podcast. Hey, they said we don't love the miscommunication trope. Okay, heard. I'm not a huge fan of it either. Rachel's has no self control in jail says I'm a sucker for single dads, but don't really like single moms. Okay. I sent her a recommendation. People who love single dad romances, read Caught Up by Liz Tom Ford. He's a baseball player. He's a single dad, and it's a super good romance. I actually just reread it this week, so I highly recommend that. Bookmates Book Club podcast. I love you guys. I love their podcast. They said, I loathe the miscommunication trope. With the power of 1,000 suns, just talk, says Tiffany. Tiffany, you're amazing. I love both the girls on that podcast. Yeah, miscommunication's not for me. I'm okay with it if it's only like like a little bit of the book. I can't do an entire book of miscommunication and slow burn. Okay, so you're not talking and there's like the tension's just building and like it's just too much room for like things to go wrong for me. Author Suzanne Hack Gross said, "I'm not into slow burn as much as I used to." I feel like I wish we talked about that more, about how like you can love a book trope, in your past, or like maybe as you're getting into a genre, but as time goes on, you may grow out of it, or you may not enjoy that trope anymore, or you just may need to take a break. I would love to hear more people's thoughts on that because there's some tropes I loved in high school, in college, and I'm a few years later, I'm realizing like I'm not in the mood for that, or like I'm not vibing with that at this point in my life, and that's totally okay. Um, cheap, sorry, Shen Pink author said, I dislike age gap tropes. I just don't feel comfortable. Okay, I totally understand that. Okay. Um, Lily and the library says, I judge books by their cover. A good book will have me buying a book even without reading the synopsis. Ooh, that was me with, um, what was it? I think it was a love song for Ricky Wilde. I saw the cover of that book and I was like, that's absolutely gorgeous. I don't even know what it's about. I want to read it. And then I listened to the audiobook. I loved the audiobook. I went in blind. And it was vague enough. I had a great time. So I'll be doing an episode about a love song for Ricky Wilde. I've already read it and I have my notes ready. So fingers crossed my friend Lauren can join me. Because it's a book that needs to be discussed. It's a book that you definitely need to dive like deeper into. All right. Okay, few more confessions. Shadow Daddy's podcast, I love their podcast. They said, Bookish confession. I am new to fantasy and didn't even know tropes were even a thing until semi-recent. I found it funny to learn tropes can be just regular things in real life, but in books it's a trope. I like seeing that tropes I have in my real life. Personally, I also love when people compare like personality traits to tropes, like grumpy sunshine. I also really love like the take care of you trope, which is just someone who's like through acts of service, they care for their partner, their loved ones. Yeah, I love tropes. I adore that. Thank you guys. Bookworm Elg said, I have too many. Yeah, and then she mentioned the big books. And those were all of the confessions that I had from y'all. So thank you so much. One of my bookish confessions I wanted to share before I hop into the bookish unboxing mini one is that a book confession I have is that I genuinely sometimes like if a book I read I'm not a huge fan of, sometimes I will post that I read it on Goodreads or I'll post that I read it on Fable, but I won't do a review. Sometimes I don't want to do a review. Like there are certain books in this world where like I really didn't enjoy it, but I don't want to bash the author. So I just post that I read it, but I don't go in depth like as I would with a book I love. Like I'll do quotes, I'll do book tropes I loved within that book, I'll do chapters I loved within that book. I'll go very in depth with reviews if I love a book. But if I don't enjoy it, I'm not doing a review because I'm scared the author will see it and somehow that will like hurt them as a person. I know that seems weird, but I just feel bad. I see how much effort people put into books. Even if it's not my cup of tea, someone else may love it, and I'm not trying to mess with their business. So I actually don't share reviews of books I've read. If I don't like them, I'll just post that I read it. I don't know. There are certain books out there that I cannot stand. But if let me know if you want me to do an episode about that without like diving too deep into it. But there are certain books out there where I'm like, okay, this made no sense. Or like I feel like it's getting a little bit too much hype. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel bad. Like I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings too bad, So, okay, let's hop right into it with this book mail. So I won a giveaway and I'm very, very grateful. So one of the books in the giveaway, just took it out of the bag, is Gone Wolf by Amber McBride. The cover is absolutely gorgeous. It's a young woman. It looks like eyes are covering her face, and it's like a wolf eyes. On the back, it says, how many mistakes can a country make? How much forgiveness is there? Ooh, okay. Let's read the description of this one. I don't know anything about this. I'm excited. In the future, a black girl known only as Inmate 11 is kept confined to be used as a biological match for the president's son, should he fall ill. She is known as Blue for the color of sadness. She lives in a small room with her dog, who is going wolf. He's pacing and imagining he is free. Inmate 11 wants to go wolf too. She wants to know what is beyond her room. In the present, Imogen lives outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. The pandemic has distanced her from everyone but her mother and her therapist. Imogen has intense phobias and nightmares of confinement. Her two older brothers once supported her, but now she's on her own until she meets a college student who helps her see the difference between being blue and sad, and being black and empowered. In this symphony of a novel, award-winning author Amber McBride lays bare the fears of being young and black in America, while also urging readers to remember that their voices and stories are important, especially when they feel the need to go wolf. Ooh, okay. This looks really, really good. I'm excited to read this. Oh, I'm really grateful. Yeah, there was a lot of books in this giveaway, so let's see. The next book coming out of this package is Sick with Trouble by Amber McBride. Oh, okay, it's by the same author. Cool. So this says, in Thick with Trouble, award-winning poet Amber McBride interrogates if being trouble, difficult, unruly, fearsome, defiant, is ultimately a weakness or an incomparable source of strength. Steeped in the hoodoo spiritual tradition and organized via reimagined tarot cards, this collection becomes a chorus of unapologetic women who laugh, cry, mesmerize, and bring outsiders to their knees, summoning the supernatural to examine death, rebirth, and life outside the male gaze. Amber McBride has crafted a haunting, spellbinding, and strikingly original collection of poems that reckon with the force and complexity of Black womanhood. Ooh, this looks super, super cool. I'm loving the Bridgerton-esque outfit in the front. She looks gorgeous. I'm vibing. Also, I love poetry. For listeners out there, I actually was VP, as vice president of my poetry club in high school, and I still write poetry to this day. It's for fun, but I will always support women who are poets, people who are poets, and just sharing their most personal thoughts. So, Thick with Trouble. I'm very excited to read this. Okay, next book from our package is Me Moth by Amber McBride. Okay, this is another book by that author. So the same two books mentioned is all by the same author. On the back it says, before my grandfather died, he taught me that a lot of what we know about moths is a flimsy as delicate as their delicate wings that sprinkle dust and death like whispered omens. Grandfather used to say, there are no omens, just balance. Balance is what brings magic. Ooh, okay. Let's read the inside. Oh, it's also signed. Hey, that's amazing. Okay. Moth has lost her family in an accident. Although she lives with her aunt, she feels alone and uprooted. That is until she meets Sani, a boy who is also searching for his roots. If he knows more about where he comes from, maybe he'll be able to understand his ongoing depression. And if Moth can help him feel grounded, perhaps she too will uncover the history she carries in her bones. Moth and Sani take a road trip that has them chasing ghosts and searching for ancestors. Both separately and together, they embark on a journey that is surprising, powerful, and unforgettable. Here is an exquisite and uplifting novel about identity, first love, and the ways in which our memories and our roots steer us through the universe. Wow, this is so cool. Thank you so, so much. Amber McBride, all these books look absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to read these. So thank you. Okay, so that is one package. Okay, we're on to package number two. All right. This is Onyx and Beyond by Amber McBride. Hey, it's another one. All right. Let's look into this one. This has a young boy with wings, and each wing has a word in it, which is really, really cool. That's awesome. It's like a chalk kind of texture. Onyx dreams of flying up in the sky. He may be close to those he's lost, and also far away from the reality that his mother is descending into early onset dementia. Every day he faces the challenge of keeping his home life together while avoiding discovery by Child Protective Services. If he has wings, Onyx could fly over his neighborhood, far above the unrest of civil rights movement and the dangers that young black boys face daily. Onyx knows he must find people who can support him, and his mother, and he knows that somewhere, whether it's in the sky or at home, he must find hope. This sounds absolutely beautiful. I cannot wait to read this. I'm honestly really excited. I recently lost a loved one, so finding more books about hope and the Black community means a lot to me, and it's really grounding. So thank you. Okay, we're on to the next book. Okay, taking out of the package. Amber McBride, we are to the we're all good at smiling. And this has a young woman on the cover, and she's like laying with butterflies and flowers all around her. The back says, Whimsy is back in the hospital for treatment of clinical depression when she meets a boy named Ferrari. She recognizes that they both have magic in the marrow of their bones. After they are released, Ferrari and his family move to the same neighborhood as Whimsy. The two friends come to realize that their lifelines may have twined and untwined many times before. They both terrified of the forest at the end of the lane. The forest whispers to Whimsy, Ooh, the forest might hold the answers to the part of Ferrari he feels is missing. Whimsy and Ferrari discover the forest holds monsters, fairy tales, and pain that they have been both running from for the past 11 years. And soon they understand that the only way out is through. Here is the harrowing and soulful novel in verse about depression, friendship, fairy tales, and how we are never as alone as we believe we are. Wow, this looks absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful for all of these books. Like giveaways are also a really great way to like get to know like authors and learn more about like their books in general. Okay, I have one more book in this bookish giveaway. Okay, last package. Taste by Melanie Harlow. This is a special edition. The front has a key. It has a photo. This looks cute. And on the back it says, but one taste might be all it takes. Ooh. Oh, and it's signed. This is absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if you can see, but on the inside, there is a beautiful signature. I actually read a book by Melanie Harlow I loved, which was about a single dad who was a firefighter and he fell for the girl next door. And I remember it being Grumpy Sunshine. I love her writing. She does small town romance really well. She also does spice really well. Lots of contemporary romance on Melanie Harlow. So I'm going to look up the description for Taste. I am so excited because this special edition is absolutely gorgeous. Also, I this is a fun fact about me, but I don't actually get that many special editions that often. When I do get them, it's for books that I really love. They're definitely an investment. But when I do win one or I get one, I'm always very grateful because they're just gorgeous. This is a hardcover. Like, I am incredibly grateful. Okay, so the description of Taste. The last person on Earth I want to be stranded with is Gianni Lupo. But thanks to the blizzard of the century, I am trapped in a roadside motel room with that cocky bastard of 2 straight days. Ooh, with one small bed. Okay, the trope one bed I actually really like because they usually have like deep conversations, spicy moments, F it moments where like I just want to be with you. I love one bed trope, so I'm excited. Okay. S some women might thank Mother Nature for delivering a polar vortex that maroons them with a 6 foot solid muscle, those deep blue eyes, and the sexy grin. But not me. I've known Gianni Lupo all my life, and he's never brought me anything but bad luck and trouble. So when the tension between us explodes with enough fiery heat to melt icy defenses, I should have known what the disaster's end results would be. A big fat plus sign. Oh, this is a surprise pregnancy trope. I'm actually okay with that if the writing's really good. So I'm okay with that. After the snow melts, I am left with more than just memories of the night we spent keeping each other warm. He might be a rising star in the culinary scene, but he's got no idea how to handle this bun in the oven. He says he wants to do the right thing, but I'm about to spend the rest of my life feeling like someone settled for me. But just when I think I've got Gianni Lupo all figured out, he gives me a taste of the man he could be, of the family we could become, of the way he could love me if I let him in. I am terrified of falling for him, but one taste might be all it takes. Thank you so much for this giveaway. I'm so, so happy. It's signed, it's beautiful. Honestly, I'm just really excited because I love Melanie Harlow. I really, really enjoyed that book I previously mentioned. And I do know that she's got a series. I think it's called what I'm gonna it is called Clover Lay Farms. And I know that it covers one generation and it covers their children. So this is actually part of that series. This is book 7. I also like that with her books, you don't necessarily need to read them in order. So I like that I can kind of hop from book to book. But that was my giveaway. I'm gonna put all my books together so you can see. I have one, two, three, four, five. I have six. I have six books that I won in this giveaway. So it's my little stack. But I am so, so grateful. This is also a bookish confession episode. So thank you for everyone who commented on my post and told me your bookish confessions. I also have a few really exciting episodes coming out very soon. I'm doing an episode with Christina Forrest. We're talking about the Green Sisters series, so that's exciting. She's an amazing author. I also have an episode coming out with an indie author who's a friend of mine who has the Evergreen University series. That's going to be a contemporary romance series. And I also have some buddy reads coming out very soon. So I also plan on discussing a deep dive about a thriller I really enjoyed recently. So I'm going to do a full spoiler episode. I miss doing those episodes with you all. I love having guests on the podcast, but sometimes I just want to chill out with you guys and talk about books for like an hour. I hope you all are having a wonderful week and have a great weekend. And I also hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please rate and subscribe on Spotify, and then like this episode, subscribe on YouTube, and have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed this bonus episode.